The officer laughed as he turned on the electric clippers, but he stopped smiling just days later, when he found out who that woman really was. The courthouse was colder than usual that morning, one of those sterile Mondays in downtown Atlanta where justice felt less like truth and more like routine. The fluorescent lights hummed, the chairs creaked, and in the holding room just outside courtroom 3B, a woman sat in silence. She didn't look like most of the people brought in. She wasn't young. Her spine was straight. Her hands rested calmly on her lap, though they were bound in cuffs. Her hair was a crown of silver curls, combed and intact, as if she'd prepared herself with dignity, even while wearing a beige-holding jumpsuit. Her name was Gloria Hammond, 64 years old, arrested the night before during a protest that turned tense near the 5 Point station. They said she refused to disperse, that she was obstructing traffic. But there were no signs of aggression, no videos of resistance, just one photo of her standing firm between two younger women while officers in riot gear yelled orders. Sergeant David Riker had been the arresting officer, and he didn't like being looked in the eye. That's what Gloria did, looked directly at him when he approached, not with fear, not even with anger, just clarity. Like she saw through the badge, the uniform, the rehearsed authority. Now in that holding room, Riker stood beside her with a smirk on his face and a buzzing clipper in his hand. "Policy says we sanitize before intake," he lied. "That hair of yours could be hiding anything." Gloria didn't speak, didn't flinch, just turned her head slightly, her gaze locked on the far wall. Riker chuckled and looked toward one of the junior deputies. "She's got the quiet ones down pat, always the dangerous ones." "Sir, she already cleared booking." "No contraband," the deputy mumbled, unsure. Riker ignored him. "Stand her up," he ordered. 2 guards took each arm and lifted Gloria to her feet. She didn't resist, but neither did she assist. Her body moved with grace, even in chains. Riker stepped behind her, lifted the clippers, and with one loud buzz pressed the blade to her crown. Silver curls fell in clumps to the floor. There was no struggle, no scream. Just the sound of metal against scalp and a silence so sharp it made the room feel like it was holding its breath. Gloria didn't cry. Her expression didn't shift. But the way she stared ahead, calm, unbroken, it unsettled everyone more than any outburst could have. Riker leaned close and whispered, "Not so high and mighty now, huh?" She turned her head just slightly. "You think this is power," she said, voice low but cutting. "You don't know what power is." He laughed again, but it sounded thinner now. Back in the courtroom, Judge Wilkins was already on his 3rd case when Gloria was brought in. The public defender shuffled her papers, not even looking up. "Gloria Hammond, charged with obstruction and non-compliance," she read, monotone. Wilkins peered over his glasses. 64? No priors? She was inciting the crowd, Riker interjected from the back. "No, she wasn't," someone said aloud. Heads turned. It was the deputy, the young one who hesitated earlier. His voice cracked slightly. "She stood still, I saw it, she didn't touch anyone." Judge Wilkins looked between them. "Release her. Charges dismissed." Riker stepped forward. "With respect, Your Honor." "I said dismissed." The chains were removed. Gloria stood up and adjusted her jumpsuit. She turned around and for the first time looked Riker in the eye again. This time something passed between them. Not anger, not threat, just a warning. She walked out slowly, barefoot, patches of hair still clinging to her shoulders, her head held as high as it had been when she came in. Riker muttered curses all the way back to the station. "She'll disappear," he said to another officer. "They always do." But she didn't. That night, a court clerk leaked footage from the courtroom's surveillance system, a grainy clip showing a senior black woman being forcibly shaved by a laughing white officer. No sound, no names, just image. And that was enough. The video lit up Twitter within hours. Hashtags like "Skak She Stood Tall" and "Our Gloria in Court" started to spread. No one knew her story, but they saw what happened, and they had questions. By morning, local news stations were replaying the clip. By afternoon, Riker's name was trending. His department issued a review of conduct, but he wasn't worried. Things like this blew over. He'd seen it happen before. But then came the article. A journalist from the Atlanta Voice had done some digging. Not only was Gloria Hammond a lifelong civil rights advocate, she was also a retired constitutional law professor, and she wasn't done yet. If you're gripped by this story, hit that subscribe button. Part 2 is where everything flips. Because what Riker didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Gloria hadn't walked away. She was walking towards something, and the next time they saw her it wouldn't be in handcuffs, it would be in robes. Days passed, then a week. The video didn't disappear, it did the opposite. It grew, shared across state lines, played on national television. It became the center of debates, on race, on power, on dignity. But Gloria remained silent. No interviews, no tweets, no press statements, just silence. And that silence made Sergeant David Riker nervous. He didn't say it aloud, of course. At work, he brushed it off like everyone else. Media stunt, he called it. They'll move on. But when he was alone, something gnawed at him. That woman's face, the calm, the way she'd said, "You don't know what power is." Then came Monday. Routine morning. Same courthouse. Same hallway. Riker was reviewing papers outside courtroom 3B when someone whispered, "That's her." He turned and froze. There she was, walking down the hallway, flanked by 2 deputies, but not in custody. No jumpsuit, no chains. She wore a black robe, clean, pressed, crisp. Her posture was straighter than before. Her steps measured and slow. The soft heels of her shoes tapped a steady rhythm against the marble floor, and her newly shaved head, no longer raw, gleamed with poise. At first, Riker thought he was hallucinating, until she passed him. She didn't look at him, didn't speak. She just kept walking, through the heavy wooden doors up to the bench, and took her seat behind the nameplate that read, Judge Gloria L. Hammond. The room fell still. Riker's ears rang. He stepped back, his face pale, fingers curling tight around the folder in his hands. How? How was this possible? The bailiff cleared his throat. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Hammond presiding. She adjusted her glasses, glanced over the case files before her, and began like she'd done it 1,000 times. Because she had. What no one, especially Riker, had realized was that Gloria had been nominated to the bench months ago. The protest had taken place during the interim between her confirmation and her first official week on the bench. Her arrest had delayed the announcement, but it hadn't erased it. Gloria hadn't needed to rush to the media. She didn't have to scream. Her seat behind that bench said everything louder than any viral clip ever could. By some cruel twist of fate or poetic justice, Riker was scheduled to testify in a hearing that very morning. Nothing major. A case involving excessive force during a street altercation. He hadn't expected anything unusual, until now. Sergeant David Riker, the clerk called. He walked slowly to the front, shoulders tense, heart pounding. He raised his right hand to be sworn in. Judge Hammond didn't even flinch. Please state your name for the record, she said calmly. Sergeant David Riker. And your badge number. 7426. Her eyes didn't leave the paperwork. She flipped a page slowly, letting silence fill the room like water in a sealed chamber. I see you've submitted a report. Would you mind explaining your use of force during this incident? She asked. Her tone was flat, professional, not a trace of emotion. It made him sweat even more. Riker stumbled through his answer. He contradicted himself. Judge Hammond made no facial expression, but with each question, she dismantled his report with precision. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She simply let the truth expose him. By the end of the session, his hands trembled. The courtroom wasn't packed, but the people who were there watched silently, almost reverently. There was a sense that something important had happened. That something ugly had been laid bare, and someone strong enough had stood up to it without raising her voice. When the hearing ended, Riker tried to leave quickly. He pushed through the hallway, heart racing. Sergeant Riker, a voice called from behind. He turned. Judge Hammond was standing by the doorway, robe flowing like calm water. She walked toward him, alone, no deputies. You shaved my head, she said. He swallowed hard. It was protocol. No, it wasn't, she replied. But I'm not here to lecture you, I don't need to. She stepped closer. You wanted me small, you wanted me humiliated, but now look at me. He couldn't respond. She leaned in just enough for only him to hear. I'm not going to ruin you. I don't need revenge. I've got something better. What? He asked, barely audible. Legacy. Then she walked away. And in that moment, Riker understood what she meant back in that holding cell. You don't know what power is. Because power wasn't clippers or handcuffs. Power was walking back into the room they tried to break you in. Stronger, smarter, and completely in control. It wasn't the courtroom that made her powerful. It was her silence, her patience, her unshakable presence. And from that day on, anyone who stepped into courtroom 3B knew the story. Some whispered it, others told it out loud, but no one forgot it, not even Riker. Because every time he walked past that courtroom, he heard the faint buzz of clippers in the back of his mind, and remembered the woman who didn't need to fight him to win. She just needed to outlast him.